Madame Adama Samassékou from the Maya Network. We shared ideas that were not taken for granted in those days, and thanks to him, UNESCO fought very much so that in 2003 the content was given more importance. Swahili.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Before getting into the subject, I'd like to thank the Italian government and especially the Lombardy Regional Administration for the warm welcome and the excellent working conditions we've been provided with. And this is a wonderful initiative to explore the future that lies ahead of us together with UNESCO. I wasn't with you from the beginning because, as Irina Bokova was saying, we were having a major meeting, and Milagros del Cora was supposed to be there as well because she's part of the International Commission for Broadband of Digital Development. This commission tackles important issues that also puts us in a better position to discuss current issues. So the idea is to bring many more populations all over the world into cyberspace. Broadband should reduce the unacceptable gap that exists today. In this digital world, we have 800 million people that cannot read or write. Today, a majority of countries are struggling to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. Education for all, health for all, etc. So broadband should help us reduce inequalities. That's why I wasn't with you from the beginning. But on the other hand, we were talking about the very same issues. I'd like to focus on a few points in my speech. First point, actually, before that, I'd like to thank Antonio Scarmeta because he brought us in this beautiful, because he reminded us of what we lived in the past and what we still live in Africa. You know, orality, oral word is important to us. He knows very well millenary knowledge. Hunters told us the history of the great book of the world. That's the fascination of telling stories, and that's what we probably need to find in this new society that we are trying to build. So this brings me to digital libraries, actually. So let me tell you that during the World Summit on the Information Society, we actually said that we're not quite building the information society because information helps build knowledge. Otherwise, information is useless. So what we are rather doing is we're trying to conceive a knowledge society and to be in a position to share it. Actually, since the beginning of mankind, we've been in a knowledge-based society. The very thing, the novelty, is that we can share knowledge instantly. And by multiplying players that are impacted by knowledge, provided that each and everyone can be party to this and can be involved. So it is important that all languages are represented in the cyberspace. That's my first point, which brings me to the second. Libraries. Libraries are the repositories of knowledge contained in books. And of course, access is limited, is under some constraints. You need to go there, of course. And the importance, what they try to do is to try and make information more accessible to everyone. My third point is this. It's true that digitization is perfectly adjusted to the needs of digital libraries to make works accessible to everyone by preserving the master copies and trying to make that available at world level. From an African perspective, I must tell you that, well, let's take a closer look. Do we have libraries in Africa? This is a big question for the African continent. We have very few public libraries. We have some national libraries, university libraries, but we have very, very few of those. And the big question for us is, what language should these works be? Most of our populations in my area of Africa, I'm not talking about North Africa here, most sub-Saharan African countries have works that are written in the colonial languages. That's the reality we are faced with. So from an African perspective, the construction of digital library should be, first of all, a multilingual library. And it shouldn't just stop at the digitization of existing paper books, but also all of the oral cultural heritage, so the description of traditional artists, craftsmanship, historical iconography, the history of architecture, and so on and so forth, but in a very interactive perspective. And this brings me to the core issue here. We can imagine, like Europeana, that each continent can create huge repository of continental knowledge. And all of this could be the world repository of human knowledge. This would give sense to the knowledge-based society that I mentioned earlier. My sixth point, collaborative projects like Wikipedia show that technology enables us to envisage, to imagine this sharing of knowledge. And here comes my seventh point. But what sort of digital library can we talk of in Africa? I think today it is important to get to the deployment of technologies that looked new, like electricity. So we wonder, will traditional media disappear? And this brings me to the question of coexistence. And I have the feeling, really, that ICT should enable continents like ours to take a quality leap, to take a technology stride forward in a way. I am convinced, fully convinced, that we should really think together about the creation of digital libraries that are not simply meant to preserve, but they should be multilingual, interactive libraries. Well, now we call them digital libraries. In the future, we might just call them interactive multilingual libraries that might link images to sounds as well, and link all of that to writing. This will enable us to move from digital books to spoken books. This will create a space where libraries will be the place where millenary wisdom in different world languages will merge, and we will have an interactive space. Young people are more familiar with IT, and they will be able to have an intimate relationship with authors and so on. And they will be able to experience the pleasure that Antonio Scarmetta was making reference to. I think that in Africa, but that doesn't only apply to Africa, listening to Scarmetta, I must say that Latin America has the very same worries. So we might create the very same temple of shared wisdom. This would enable us to have a new product with an updated medium, because technology allows that. Costs are high today, but who knows? With the development of technology, prices will go down, and we will be in a position to have this spoken book, this oral book, where you can read the book, but you can also live the collective emotions linked to the spoken word into a protected space of library. Thank you.